good day to all who may be viewing this. My name is Brian Wickman. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the National Institute for Direct Instruction. I'm joined today by the Senior Author of the Direct Instruction Programs, Owen Engelmann, one of the authors on the Reading Mastery Transformations Edition, current revision of the Reading Mastery Program. And so, Owen, thanks a lot for giving your time today. I really do appreciate that. It's good to see you in our current environment. I hope you washed your hands. I'm glad we don't have to wear masks. I see your hound in the background there, both of them. And so it's good that you have company with you. So anyhow, starting into this, so would you do me a favor, give us a brief history of your association with direct instruction?
Well,
toss the softball.
I will try to keep it brief. I was the original DI test subject with my twin brother, Kurt, who is the president of NIFTY. So he started cutting his teeth on education with my older brother, and then he started working with us. And at the time, he was working in advertising, and the work he had done with us, and then with research for his advertising firm, he decided to switch careers and eventually developed direct instruction based on his work with those kids. But I was one of the originals. I've worked on direct instruction materials. I was given summer jobs starting in, when I was 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, writing items. And honestly, I wasn't super good at it back then. I was like going, I wish I was with my friends out at the lake instead of being here. But I didn't understand the big picture at the time. I always had a facility for math. So as I worked during the summers, sometimes I would get to tutor kids in different programs, usually math. But sometimes I actually got to use the actual programs, and that started giving me some insight to things. I didn't work on direct instruction stuff a lot during college. I did review the original or the initial manuscript for a theory of instruction. So, and then later I went to, after I graduated from the university, I worked at the Engelmann Becker Corporation on the video disc programs. And that was stuff that I was useful there because I had a hard science degree, so I had expertise in the area, and I had some inkling of what was going on in direct instruction. Then I left for a while and worked in the film industry for 3.5 years, and then when I came back, I started working on the Connecting Math Concepts program. I earned an opportunity to author the 4th level of the program, and I worked on reasoning and writing and CMC, and then I started working in the program, developing the programs, and it became clear to some of my other colleagues that I needed experience in the classroom to become a good co-author. So I got some well-rounded practice and learned from the best. And then, right around 2001, my role started shifting. I started focusing more on the authorship and less on in-school. So instead of being in schools 18, 20 weeks a year, I was in schools and working with them maybe 4 or 5 weeks a year. And then, now I just, whatever consulting is incidental when people are having issues, they give me a call, and now I'm almost exclusively writing programs. I do deal with teachers with the field test data. So the kids and the teachers and the field test data, that's, an imperative part of honing direct instruction programs, but it's all associated with the development of the programs now.
What levels of the reading mastery transition did you focus on?
My focus was on reading. I was the lead author on reading K and reading 1.
Okay.
Again, the reading mastery has been characterized by the orthography that Cookie Bruner and my dad developed back in the 60s. This is a direct instruction program, and reading mastery transformations is significantly different from, and I think I'm jumping the gun on one of the later questions. But,
you're all good, don't worry.
Reading mastery has always been characterized by that sequence, which doesn't involve letter names until halfway through the second year of instruction, when they start, dealing with the letter names and, making that discrimination. All of the sounds are represented by orthographic, unique orthographic symbol that slowly gets transformed into regular print. Well, the Horizons sequence of Horizons A and Horizons B is replacing the traditional reading mastery sequence in the kindergarten first grade program. So I had to adapt reading mastery, Horizons A and Horizons B to create the reading mastery transformations K and 1 programs.
Okay, so yeah, a veteran user of direct instruction of a reading mastery, when they, if they were to be given the presentations for the transformations edition, they would look at it and go, wait a minute, this is not reading mastery, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, they would say, wait, there's been a huge change, a huge shift. Can you tell me a bit what was the rationale for making that shift?
Well, the Horizon sequence is the most underutilized effective sequence in the world. I mean, by far. Reading mastery, you could make a case for the initial reading mastery sequence that it's highly underutilized because it only has 1% of the, 1.2% of the market share, and it should have 72% of the market share, or, 47, and then, another 25 should go to Horizons. But the MHE recognizes that Horizons is one of those sequences when you have kids that are appropriately placed, and if it's taught with a modicum of fidelity, the kids will read. You won't have non-readers. You won't have kids with dyslexia. You're going to have high-performing kids that understand what they're reading and are able to read decode, have a large vocabulary of decoding words, and be able to decode at a good rate and read with expression. Mm-hmm. So, that's what all reading sequences want to do. And there are virtually none outside of those two sequences, beginning reading sequences, that, there are none that are anywhere near as effective as those two. So MHE wanted to create a language arts program that featured this other sequence. Why do they want that other sequence? Because it is more acceptable. It uses the traditional text. There's no weird orthography like in the traditional reading mastery sequence, the T and the H are combined, and the T looks different than the other T that's used in isolation, and the H looks different than the other H that's used in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
In the reading mastery transformations, the old Horizon sequence, the T's and the H's look identical. When and early in the reading mastery transformations K program, when we introduce the diphthong TH, we have an underline to indicate that those letters go together, but we don't alter the actual orthography of T or H. So anyhow, it's more acceptable for the the traditional schools, because a lot of the teachers go, why would you want to have these weird looking letters in what you're teaching to read? Obviously, they don't understand that when you're dealing with naive learners or kids who are just getting used to symbols, it's very helpful to have them be able to discriminate the sounds that they're going to make. The long and the short of it is they wanted to use this sequence because it's a very powerful beginning reading sequence, and they felt that this could open up the doors to a lot of other people who are not using reading mastery or any direct instruction now, because the beginning reading sequence in a lot of respects is more palatable, more acceptable to schools.
Yeah, that's reasonable, I'd say. So when we're talking about looking at the program and it looking like normal print and whatnot, so what about those kids who don't come from that background, perhaps where they are exposed to that traditional print, and who the old reading mastery was very successful with? How do we know that this program is going to work for those kids?
Well, I mean, that was a big issue with naming it. One of the main reasons that I agreed to have call this language arts series that we developed Reading Mastery Transformations is that I was assured that they were going to try and use it with customers who were not, schools out there that were not using direct instruction at the time. I didn't want current reading mastery customers who are using the original reading mastery sequence to switch if they're using something that's working. I don't want to disrupt that. Learning these programs and teaching these programs and implementing them effectively requires a lot of understanding and knowledge and practice with the actual sequence. And when you move to a new sequence, you got to learn a whole new set of skills. Now, granted, if you're already a good reading mastery teacher of the original sequence, you ought to be able to pick up the reading mastery transformation sequence pretty quickly. However, what's the point if you're being effective? You pointed out that the original reading mastery sequence did a very good job of addressing the lowest performers, that if they could follow simple directions, they didn't need any knowledge of symbols or any understanding of that stuff to be successful in the original reading mastery sequence. Mm-hmm. We created a 40-lesson pre-program, taught all of the prerequisite skills that students would need to be successful in the reading mastery transformations K sequence. So we did have to do something pretty dramatic to address that skill disparity in the appropriate learners for the old Horizon sequence versus the original reading mastery sequence.
Oh, that was a good idea. Sort of like no student left behind. He just wasn't ready for it yet. Uh, so that's great. So another big change in the program is certainly the delivery mode for the teacher.
Yeah.
Going to a tablet now, huh?
Yes, yes. I think that should enable the teacher to um, be less encumbered in some respects. The teacher presentation used to contain illustrations, and they'd have to, touch up there, and those books get heavy. The tablet should enable them to navigate through the lesson more easily in a lot of respects, and it's less heavy to carry around. So, hopefully this will be a step in the right direction. They will also have a lot of access to other information that will be at the touch of a touch of the screen in order to look up certain things. For instance, we have, I don't remember the name that MHE calls it, but it's essentially support information for the teacher, and it will come up and alert teachers to new things, especially like if you have a substitute teacher, it will let them know, hey, for this exercise, these are the spots that you want to watch. Mm-hmm. Or this is, a correction that comes up, especially in like the early grades, K and 1. If there's something new being presented, it will show the corrections so they know what to do.
Neat. Well, that sounds very functional. That's great. So, so is there anything in particular that like surprised you as you worked through this revision?
When we did the Horizons, the original Horizon sequence, we had these charts that showed our tracks and what we presented. And then we had all these word tables, and I'd have to sort through all of the lessons and make sure everything was introduced appropriately in the word attack before it appeared in the connected text or the passages and the stories. We've developed, the technology has improved significantly since the late 90s when we were developing. Well, actually, I think it was the mid 90s when we were developing the Horizons program. And we now have a thing called the content tracker. So we can basically dump the lessons in, and it'll sort it into, different categories. And then the word reading category and the sounds and all that other stuff, we were able to find all the things, all the places in the original sequence, which I thought was very tight. And it worked very well, right? So it was, from an instructional standpoint, tight, but we were able to even clean it up more and make sure that there was prerequisite instruction on all the new stuff that was coming in. And it just showed us where, there were possible instructional lapses. And those instructional lapses don't affect your high performer, your top 60% of the students. They don't have any trouble with it because they got the instruction that they need. What it affects tends to be, that lower quartile, or, those kids. And we were able to clean a lot of that up, but it surprised me that, there were so many things that we could have improved on in the original sequence from an analytical perspective. And we did do that. One of the other things that surprised me that I was really excited about was how to address some of the standards, the Common Core State standards. By the way, the reading mastery transformations satisfies all of the Common Core State standards. That meant a lot more when we started this project, because a lot of the Common Core State standards, the states are abandoning them because they're, in a lot of respects, impossible to satisfy. But anyhow, this program does. And, some of the standards were very unwieldy and in some cases bordered on imposing an instructional strategy that is in direct conflict to direct instruction. One of those examples, let me just read it to you. Use context to confirm or self-correct word recognition and understanding, rereading as necessary. So this is the vestige of the whole language approach of, oh, look at the picture and think about what else you've read and guess at what the word is, which is exactly the opposite of what direct instruction wants to do.
Right. Yeah.
And so we had to satisfy this standard, and how to do something like that in an elegant way that preserves our strategies, the strategies that we are so careful to systematically introduce and foster that the kids adopt. I mean, that's the whole point of direct instruction.
What's your first, it's not what your first strategy, it's pretty much like what's your only strategy.
Right, yeah, the logic of the standard is backwards. The point of reading is to recognize words, to extract understanding and context from the text, not to use context to figure out the text. Failed reading strategies rely on basing understanding on context. DI doesn't expect students to perform tasks that require skills that the program hasn't introduced. So how could we satisfy the standard that reeked of strategies that conflicted with our instructional method and adhere to the DI principles? I was upset that I had to figure out how to employ a strategy that was counter to the strategies we teach. Then I thought about it for a while, and I realized that there are situations in which context is required to recognize the words. Whenever we read a homograph, does, does, as in female deer, read, as in I read, and read, as in I read, lead, as in, lead, as in follow me, and led, as in the heavy metal. Live, as in I love to live life, and live, as in he's live now from New York. And then bow, as in a hair bow, and bow, as in the bow of a boat, or take a bow. The end goal to satisfy this standard is to give children a sentence. So what we figured out we needed to do was that the end goal to satisfy the standard is to give children a sentence to read that contains one of these homographs and have them confirm or self-correct by context. So, we figured something pretty well out. Now, a lot of these words, does, read, lead, live, live, all of those had been previously introduced. Now, how do we distill the difference between live and live? Well, we've got prompting in the Reading Mastery Transformations K program. And if there's a blue letter in a word, the blue letter means that it doesn't make any sound, but another letter in the word says its name. And those letters are almost always stipulated as nouns. So in a short 4-letter word like L-I-V-E, if there's a blue E, they know that I is going to say its name. So that's how, so when they have the word live, it's spelled L-I-V-E, of course, but it has a squiggle underline underneath the blue E, which signals that, yeah, something's different about this word. It doesn't work the same way. So they can understand those things. Does. A squiggle underline, by the way, means that something is odd about that letter. It doesn't behave the way it normally does in other texts. The word does, same thing. OE is squiggle underline, so they know that the O and the E don't do the same thing that they normally do in other words. So anyhow, we introduce all of these words. Most of the words does, read, lead, live, and live, they were all introduced starting in level K. So many of these words have been practiced for a long time. And then we started introducing the homographs. So when we introduced the homographs, we needed to teach them the meaning of those words. What discriminates those words? Example, we introduced bow by showing a picture of a bow on someone's shoe and then telling the children that a bow was something you tie. Okay, a bow was something you tie. We introduced bow by showing a picture of someone bowing in front of a crowd and telling children that a bow is bending at the waist to show appreciation or respect. Okay, so once they've had they can decode these words with prompts, they understand the meaning and the discrimination, and we do not only reading exercises with the meaning discrimination, we also do verbal exercises, which tend to be much faster because you don't have to rely on them making, worry about them making a mistake and on reading the words and then correcting that before you get to the meaning. So, verbal stuff works really nicely. And then lessons later, after all this stuff is firm, they read sentences in their readers like, she put a bow in her hair before going on stage. And then after reading the sentence, we ask, for the word spelled B-O-W, did she say the word that means something you tie or showing appreciation or respect? Boom. And then if they didn't read the correct word, they have to go back, self-correct, and reread the sentence. And then, we present, another sentence. And later on, it could be interposed with other sentences so they don't always know that the next one's, if I just read bow, now I'm going to read about bow, But then, after singing, she took a bow before thanking the crowd. Then we ask the same question. For the word spelled B-O-W, did she say the word that means something you tie or showing appreciation or respect? And so the bottom line with all that, it turns out that we were able to turn the sow's ear the Common Core state standards gave us into a meaningful silk purse. Most of the standards for K and 1 that smack of strategies in conflict with direct instruction turned out that way. We were able to figure out something that was pretty elegant and meaningful. I think the content, we added information passages, and they're relatively simple information passages. But if you grab a normal kindergarten or first grade selection that kids are supposed to be able to read, the vocabulary is so outrageous. You cannot write a good information passage in without including just an assortment of irregular words that are just, really hard to, to encompass in a systematic program that teaches strategies and word groups and all those things so kids can be uniformly or consistently, not uniformly, consistently effective in reading. I mean, because kids are going to make errors, but you want to be able to correct those errors. And you want to minimize those errors so the kids are in a situation where they're going to continue to adhere to those concepts and rules and strategies you've taught them to be able to do that decoding. If they make too many errors or they don't have sufficient rules to apply in enough of in a high enough percentage of the words that they're reading, they're going to start guessing. And when you create a program that has such a high rate of irregular words, it promotes guessing too much. So they were very difficult to create, and we had to wait until we had one. The last 5 lessons of the K program were information passages, and we were able to do one other passage in the about 16 lessons before the end of the program. And those are the 6 passages, and they deal with fish, grass, and food. But those were we don't use the word food. At least I don't think we do. I'd have to go check. But they aren't as complex as you would want them to be, but they're very good, solid passages. And then the passages we have in grade 1 are pretty, they really teach stuff, and they're information passages where kids are going to learn things from them. And the field test stuff that we've done show that the kids really love them, because it's not just that they're reading these stories, which they love, by the way. They get to read these information passages, and now they're actually learning something. They know something about vehicles or, whatever other things that were, flying things, the difference between flying and gliding, stuff like that. It's really cool.
Hey. So our last question is, what advice do you have for teachers implementing the programs and coaches that support them? So what kinds of things do they need to pay special attention to?
Some of the general things that I would say is that it's super important to have fun. If you are having fun, the kids will have fun. And there's a lot of really, really fun stuff that they can do, that they do in these programs that the script directs them to do. The stories is a big payoff. We routinely we regularly get feedback from teachers about how much kids love the stories and they have favorite characters, and it's really one of those things that the kids look forward to. Use that as a reinforcer. Use that as motivation. Come on, let's get these word lists right so we can get to that story. I think we have, the second part of, bitter batter, or whatever like that. And you can use it as a reinforcement, and don't hesitate to model things for kids. Typically, if you think that kids might have a lumpy time with them, hey, you've got a really tough passage coming up. Everybody turn your page to that, put your finger on the first word. I'm going to read it. Listen to how I read it and follow along. And then utilize that time to read at a rate that all of the kids can read, but use inflection to show what's important about it. And pause so they know when things are really important, and be an actress and engage with them like you're in the theater and let them know how much fun this is, and then really reinforce them when they go back and read it. But it's much better to do that and read a passage of, 3-4 sentences and then go back and have the kids be able to do it really, really well and fluently with great, come on, Owen, with enthusiasm and expression. You want them to be able to read with good expression, because if they're reading with appropriate and good expression, they're reading fluently, or at least fluently enough. So another thing is, don't worry about the rate. Make sure that they're accurate and they're decoding accurately with appropriate expression, and then just practice is going to improve the rate. So much of the school system is now, well, if they're at the end of first grade, they should be decoding at 75 words a minute. And then if you emphasize the rate, you are going to force kids to not worry about what it's saying and abandon comprehension and abandon reading with effective expression, and into that monotone, have fun presenting new information and conceptual strategies, so children, and that's not what you want to do. Right. So the rate will come if they're accurate. The rate will certainly come. The comprehension will come if they can read with expression. Focus on that and make it fun, because these kids are learning decoding strategies that are going to be the foundation of everything they're going to do for the rest of their life. And this is exciting, and they are learning new stuff, and they're learning how to learn eventually from what you're teaching them in the text that they're having right now. So that is the thing that I would really emphasize to teachers.
Yeah, I appreciate your enthusiasm on that. Yeah.
Have fun with it. Model model the passages and what behaviors, the responses that you expect them to do. Do it in a fun, light way, not a punitive way. Circle back, make sure that they're at mastery, and focus on them reading with good expression and accuracy. And then after they've mastered all that, then you can work on rate, and don't put the cart before the horse, and focus on rate before they've got the skills that they need to be able to do it well.
Yeah, that's great advice. That really is. Yeah, too often they get bogged down on the decoding aspect of it, and yes. I mean that's not the purpose of what we're trying. The skill that we're trying to teach. It's a part, but it's not the whole package. So
right.
Good advice. Good advice. Well, I don't really have any more questions. I don't know if there's anything that you've been itching to tell people or whatever. If I give you an opportunity to.
Well, thank you, Brian.
I really want to thank you for your time, and even more than that, thank you for for me personally, the opportunity to hear more about the program. And I think you all, as a team, and as individuals, have done a great job to ensuring the legacy of your father continuing through, strengthening. You talk about foundation, strengthening the program, and so good job. And we hope it is met with great success and acceptance out there in the world. So,
well, I really appreciate that. And have you seen either version of The Lion King?
No. Actually, yes, the first one, with my kid.
So Simba goes off, and he goes to the elephant graveyard, and he almost gets wiped out by the hyenas.
Right.
And after Mufasa saves them and brings them back and sends Nala home, and he goes, Simba, I need to talk to you. And Simba's like, oh no, I'm in big trouble. And as he's walking, he stops and he puts his paw in his dad's paw print. And so here's his little paw, and here's Mufasa's paw print. That's how I feel sometimes. So, and I've got to rationalize with myself that I'm not him. I'm never going to fill that paw, but I got to utilize the people around me and utilize my skill set. And some of them, I think I have more skills than he did. And I got to figure out and leverage the resources I have to be able to function in the way, be able to do all of the things that the direct instruction development community did before he left us. And, that's no easy task, but I think we can do it because I think we have a lot of very strong human resources out there that maybe have been underutilized or not yet empowered to be able to take over arenas of the development process.